File over app is a philosophy popularized by Obsidian CEO Steph Ango. Here's why it's important. So I'm going to read the first bit of it and then kind of explain how it might apply to you. So, file over app as a philosophy. If you want to create digital artifacts that last, they must be files you can control in formats that are easy to retrieve and read. Use tools that give you this freedom. File over app is an appeal to tool makers, accept that all software is ephemeral, and give people ownership over their data. So I can give you some practical examples of that. First of all, this is Obsidian, the software itself, and you can see on the right, we have like this grid view in bases that shows these notes. On the left, you get a folder structure in their file explorer. I'm going to zoom in a bit so you can see it here. Now on the right, that's just reflective of actual folders and files on my physical hard drive. It's a one-to-one. If I nuked Obsidian tomorrow, if I uninstalled it, all these files and folders would stay on my hard drive, and I could use any other markdown, reading, parsing, editing tool to access them. It's not beholden specifically to Obsidian. The same principle applies to my personal website. So this is the website that you can visit if you'd like. Works like a standard website. You can read the content, do whatever you need to do. It's actually just a set of files in a GitHub repository that's private. There's just a bunch of files. And I have those same files on my hard drive. So if GitHub disappeared tomorrow, if Netlify shut down, I can take these files and push them to another alternative, GitLab or Vercel. And that's because I have complete control over my data. I'm not beholden to one service or the other. And the nature of these tools allows flexibility and platform agnosticism. I'll give you another more practical example that maybe you've experienced before. So obviously this is iTunes, but we've moved on to Apple Music since. But I think iTunes does a great job because the problem with iTunes is, there's actually a myriad of problems with iTunes, but there's a couple. If you were to purchase a song from the iTunes store, you are locked in via DRM to using iTunes only or iTunes compatible hardware to playing that song. As soon as you try to copy that and play it on something else, maybe you have a Windows laptop that doesn't have iTunes, or you want to have a portable media player or a phone or a Samsung device or whatever it may be, you're not going to be able to even play that file at all because you're locked into this ecosystem. Conversely, let's say you ripped a CD through iTunes back in the day and you gave it, and it was all unknown artists, all the tracks weren't labeled properly. You went in and did the work to label them, provide the album art, include the genre, the year it was released, I already said the genre. You went to all this trouble. Well, guess what? Depending on your setup, that data was only tied to iTunes and not written in the metadata of those files themselves. So the minute you uninstall iTunes, well, you have a folder called unknown artist, you have a folder called unknown album, and you have a bunch of tracks in MP3 or M4A or whatever the format that are just unknown track X, unknown track Y. All the work that you put in to these files that you own has basically vanished. And so if you ever migrated from iTunes to something else, you'll know how painful the process was. What you ought to do is use software that, in this case, writes the metadata directly to the files themselves instead of this proprietary layer where it associates metadata with files only in this software, only in this program. So iTunes is an easy one to pick on because it's got a bunch of problems, but it's far from the only example. So I encourage you to think about this file over app philosophy. And again, the more you're reliant on cloud service providers, the less you really own. So, and I understand the leap from relying on cloud providers to store your files or to play your music or have your media library, whatever it is, could be pretty monumental to move to local collection. But there are tools like Plex that you can use to kind of have all your information stored locally, but then still access it from anywhere really. There's a bunch of tools for you if you want to go the self-hosting route, and I very much recommend it. I've been maintaining a personal music collection since 2004, 2005, and I'm very happy that I have it. There are versions of songs you can't find on the streaming sites, on Spotify, YouTube Music, or Apple Music, whatever you use. So I strongly encourage you to think about do an audit of your own important files or your own important assets and think, how modular is this? What's the level of control I have over it? And that will give you the most amount of longevity for the things that are important in your life that are digital. Thank you so much. I'll catch you guys on the next one.